Hey everyone, this is Charlie Shrem, and you're listening to Untold Stories. This is a show where we dive deep into the lives and personal histories of some of crypto's most influential leaders and find out how the crypto movement truly came to be. Let's dive in. Wow, what an episode. We just talked to Tim Byun, who is the CEO of OKCoin. It's very interesting because for the first half of the episode, we didn't talk about OKCoin, which at one point in 2016 and 2017 was the largest exchange in the world, processing over 16,000 Bitcoin per month. We didn't talk about that in the beginning. We talked about how Tim was a bank examiner for the FDIC for 3 years, then actually worked as an examining manager for the Federal Reserve for 9 years, worked as an AML officer for Visa for another 5 years, and then jumped in to be the chief compliance officer at BitPay and eventually the CEO of OKCoin. I have to admit, I've never spoken to or seen someone who's worked for so many government agencies and decided to say, hey, we need to do this crypto thing, and then jump into Bitcoin, jump into crypto. It's like as if President Trump decided to work for a Bitcoin company. That's how I see it. And this was such a great episode because he provided so much insight into what is going on the other side of the table and in other camps. We talked about financial literacy, and we talked about why he thinks that money is owned by governments. Their own money is owned by governments, and that was a very polarizing topic. We talked about that. We talked about the difference between OKCoin and OKX. We talked about what it was like working for the government in 2008, and if he thinks that there is good clarity in the regulatory world, the regulatory landscape right now. And then we really ask some tough questions on what he thinks the government's role in money and finances. This was such a fantastic episode. Enjoy it, and I'll talk to you guys right after the ads. Talk to you in a second. How do you actually live your life on crypto? How do you do it? I've been doing it since I first got started with Bitcoin back in 2011. But since 2016, I've been using the BitPay debit card to spend my Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis. And it's been such a great product that I've been using it for over 3 years. BitPay is now sponsoring Untold Stories, and they're going to be giving away free Visa debit cards to all my listeners. All you have to do is visit bitpay.com/Charlie. It's such an easy card to use. You get the card in the mail, you download the BitPay app, you put Bitcoin on the app, and when you want to send Bitcoin from the app into your debit card, it only takes a few seconds and you can spend your Bitcoin anywhere credit cards are offered. It's really so easy. You almost wonder, why didn't this come out in 2011 when Bitcoin first launched? Well, it was very difficult to do. In fact, I actually tried to launch my own debit card, but I wasn't able to because the credit card companies were very reluctant to do it. But now BitPay launched their product, and a lot of other companies have launched credit cards and debit cards using Bitcoin over the years. I still will only use the BitPay card. I'm very loyal to the brands I like, and I hope you guys are too. The fees are very low. You can use it to withdraw cash at ATMs. You can use it all around the world with very, very low fees. A lot of companies have tacked on super high fees, and I don't like that. So check it out, bitpay.com/Charlie. That's bitpay.com/Charlie. You get a free card. You don't have to pay for it. Usually the card costs $10 or more. There's a commitment, but you don't have to do that here. It's a free card. There's literally no reason to not try it out. I've been using it for over 3 years. So check it out. You're a super loyal podcast listener, and you've been listening to my show for a while. So you know that Bitpanda, which is a company based out of Austria, has been working with me for a few months now. And I'm a huge fan of Vienna, and I'm a huge fan of Bitpanda. Let me tell you a little bit about them. Bitpanda is the leading European platform for investing in digital assets. Their core product is an easy-to-use crypto on-ramp and digital asset broker. They have over 1 million users, so you know they really care about their customers. What's amazing about Bitpanda is really how easy it is to set up an account and get going. They recently launched their own educational platform, and this is super cool, so check it out. Take a listen for a second, where you can learn all about Bitcoin and more. It's free, regularly updated, and you can earn €5 for free when you complete the quiz. So make sure you check it out, bitpanda.com. They are a big sponsor of ours, and please give them some love because they love me. Over the years, a lot of companies have tried doing crypto social networking. But the problem is that there are a lot of really good social networking apps already out there, like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. How do we build a social network that's perfect for crypto? Well, I want to talk about Pepo, our newest sponsor of Untold Stories. Pepo is an amazing social media app that's built for the crypto community. What's really cool about it is that you can get rewarded for uploading and putting out good content, and you can also reward with crypto people who put up content that you really, really like. It's fast and simple, and it's the first crypto-powered app to be approved by the Apple and Google App Stores. You can find me on Pepo right now at Charlie Shrem, the same handle as my Twitter, and I'm going to be posting interviews, travel videos, and more. So make sure you check out Pepo. It's super cool. Pepo.com. Enjoy it. Untold Stories wouldn't be here without the amazing production company Blockworks Group. A few months ago, I approached Blockworks Group and I said, hey guys, I want to do a show, Untold Stories. Can we make it happen? And these guys are the only event and podcast production company that I trust. Really, the show is powered by them, and it wouldn't be here today without the amazing work of the Blockworks Group team. So for access to all the premier digital asset conferences and to check out their other podcasts in their network that they produce, check them out at blockworksgroup.io. That's blockworksgroup.io. I promise you will not be disappointed. I have today the CEO of OKCoin, Tim Byun, and up until like this second, I was very excited to interview him, but now he just called me a budding journalist, and I don't know how I feel. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you for having me.
So, no, I'm just joking about that. I'll take that as a compliment, although I do say that this show is not we're not news. We don't break news, or it's not a journalism show, but I do appreciate that you put me in that category. And I have to be honest with you. I'm very much looking forward to the show. OKCoin has a huge history in the Bitcoin space and on the crypto space, having been founded in 2013. Most people don't realize that. But Tim, I have to say, doing my research of you have a very interesting history, and I'm intrigued, that you kind of jumped into crypto. And so I want to read your history, like where you worked and what you did prior. And I'm curious, and I'm going to ask you some questions on it. But I think it's exciting when we have someone as seasoned as you in the finance space jump in and jump in the crypto space. I think it's a very good sign of the health of our space. And you're not the first person that I spoke to that's an executive at a crypto company that came from, even working for the government. I've interviewed people on this show that have worked for the government before, worked for banks, and just, they come to work with a smile on their face every day. And so just to read your history back a little bit, you for 3 years, you were an assistant bank examiner for the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Company. Is it a company or corporation?
Corporation,
but it's not really a corporation. It's
It's a federal agency.
And then you were an examining manager at the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. You were there 9 years. You then jumped into corporate. You worked at Visa for 5 years. You were an AML officer and head of global credit settlement risk. And then you had your first foray in 2014. And 2014 was a little bit, I'm going to circle this. I want to go back to this because 2014 to jump into crypto was heavy bear market, like heavy bear market. So I want to ask you about that in a second. So then you worked as chief compliance officer at BitPay, and then you jumped into OKLink. You were the chief risk officer, and you joined the OK group. You were the chief revenue officer, head of government relations, which is very interesting, actually. I want to ask you which governments. And then you'd be the CEO of OKCoin for almost 2 years now. So congratulations. But the first question I have for you is, what do you think of money? What do you think of the government's role of money? And not from like what you've learned in college or university, but just by working for so many years for various government agencies. Give us some insight into what you think and how things are kind of done, from the other side.
That's a a huge question that you want to start off with, and I'm glad to take it. First of all, money is owned by governments. So I think what we see today is actually an explosion of topics, discussions, vetting, testimonies with the Facebook Libra. And I think the crux of what's happening is that governments control money. Governments make their own money.
For thousands of years. For thousands of years.
Exactly.
Like forever.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And for the first time, when you have a $500 billion public company like Facebook that want to make and control their own money, I think governments have woken up and said, no, 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 no. Only countries make money. Only sovereign nations make money. And therefore, money is, maybe you and I, we ponder and think about what the heck
we do.
is
We
money.
Theorize. Yeah.
Correct. But most of Main Street, they don't really think about money other than, do I have money enough to spend, have a good time, make a living, pay tuition for kids. So, you and I ponder about money, and it's actually controlled by the government. It keeps the society, in shape. We like to call it financial stability in the Federal Reserve world. But it's really a way to control and I think give life to the public, but it's really controlled by the government.
You touched on something interesting, financial literacy. You're right. Most people don't think about it. I mean, even before I got into Bitcoin, I never really thought about the specifics about, what's going on with the levers of our financial system. Most people don't think about it. Do you think that crypto has made America and the rest of the world, but kind of, let's break up the question with, and then when I ask you questions going forward, if possible, try to give me two answers, because America and the rest of the world are very different. So it's almost like two different answers. So for the sake of this conversation, do you think that crypto, and we'll use the term crypto interchangeably here, do you think crypto has awoken people to financial literacy? And do you think that crypto has woken people in the rest of the world to financial literacy?
Absolutely. As part of the Federal Reserve, their mission is to promote safety and soundness, financial stability, but they actually spend a lot of effort in educating the public about the banking system, interest rates, what exactly does APR mean? How is it different from simple interest? And therefore, I think Bitcoin has taken financial literacy to a new level, and it's a healthy level. Not many people may agree or want Bitcoin, but it's definitely going to let them investigate and learn more about what money is, what Bitcoin is. And I think it's a huge positive. I think right before Bitcoin, the movement towards, innovative financial companies like Lending Club, not much to talk about Lending Club these days, but when Lending Club came to the scene, it allowed individuals to become investors as well as borrowers, right? Main Street, the vast public knew about borrowing, but not much of Main Street knew about investing in such a way that you could actually be the bank. And so Lending Club, I thought, was an exciting avenue for financial literacy because it allowed you to learn a whole new spectrum of diversifying different credit grades, risk return trade-offs. You could make your own portfolio with as little as $500. And I thought that was amazing. But now comes along Bitcoin and the entire crypto world, and that's taken it to a new level. So I think it's an absolute positive for society to learn more about finance.
That's very interesting. Oh, I'll let you finish before I ask my question. Sorry.
You asked about, globally. I think, my background is I'm Korean, and I think Asian countries or Asian cultures tend to talk about money a little more freely, right? We're probably even rude at the dinner table where we ask someone, how much do you make? Real bluntly. But it's a little more ingrained, I think, outside of the US to talk about money, to talk about investments, which are kind of pretty personal. But I think outside of the US, that's why Bitcoin has taken off a little more, because I think it's a little more natural to talk about money, to talk about investments, to learn from others. And it's not such a real deep personal issue.
That's a very good point, because my really good friend just came to visit, and him and his new bride came to visit us here this weekend, and she just moved here from Australia. First time in America. They meet, they get married a few months later, and she felt, and what she was telling me was, she said, it's so weird in Australia. We're very upfront and blunt, exactly what you said about money and politics, especially politics, but what you do, how you do it, how much you make, very specific politics, especially in places, she said, where they have parliamentary republics, where there's a lot more parties and a lot more candidates. But in America, she was almost told that politics and money it's not something you talk about on the dinner table. And I wasn't really planning on jumping into this, but I'm curious to your thoughts on this subject. Because you for better or for worse, you've been working in money for
we talk about politics.
You do?
Yes, we in the U.S. we talk about politics. I think that's the one common denominator. Every culture talks about politics. I think it's a little easier. Financial literacy or finance is tougher, but it's so important of our social lives. So I love new ways for people to learn more about our finance, our financial system, banking system. And I think Bitcoin will help us get stronger in terms of financial literacy.
I think you're right. From 1991 to 2009, you worked in the government sector of finance, and with a brief stint at a bank. Were there any during those 20 years? Were there any other exciting financial technologies that came out that you were as excited as in that you were now in Bitcoin, that you are now in Bitcoin? And I mean, I guess the answer is no, because you freaking became the CEO of one of the largest Bitcoin crypto companies in the world.
What I love about my history, and it was not by my, design or genius, or I'm really just an average guy, but I feel like I was at the right place, right time, and obviously worked hard to learn the disciplines of each role that I was in. So as a regulator, it's a very tough job. A regulator will always get criticized, right? You're always judged. Everything is clear in hindsight. But at the heat of the moment, whether it's a great financial recession, whether it's the Asian flu, whether it's, when I graduated in 1991, we had the S&L crisis. And, people forget, but thousands of banks went under. And so
this was the Asian currency crisis, right?
Asian currency was more in 1998, Asian flu, Russian ruble crisis. But 1991, we had all the S&L, savings and loans, go under. And so, it really just gave me the tools to, exercise prudence, practice risk management, not only for banking institutions, but even a crypto company. Not every day is going to be a great trading day, or prices are going to go up. Prices also go down. And so, it really taught me to look ahead to the long run and really plan accordingly. So I'm a pretty conservative guy, but these tools have led me to joining BitPay, which was amazing, and then finally joining OKCoin and OK Group. And so it really provided a host of different views. And so I'm just glad to be learning every day on the job, believe
Yeah.
it or not.
No, I agree. And I should say that I've been a customer of BitPay since around 2013, 2014, and they're one of our sponsors here at Untold Stories. I'm a big fan of Steven and Tony, and I've been friends with them for many years. And I know that BitPay got a lot of flack over the years. And I want to talk to you about this because you were the chief compliance officer, and the company continued to grow. But over the years, as a crypto company grows, they have to negotiate very difficult waters to appease their customers of the crypto space, which includes, the crypto anarchists, the libertarians, but also continue to exist and operate and make money. And in order to do that, you have to make, government regulatory bodies extremely comfortable and extremely happy. And I guess you being a regulator for 20 years definitely helped with that and taught with that. But how do you toe that line? Can you think of any times where you said to yourself, how do I now, this is a situation where I have to keep both sides happy and I don't know how to do that, but then you figured it out. Can you think of any scenarios where that happened?
BitPay is a money service business, a defined term in the US. BitPay is required to register with FinCEN, a department of the Treasury. And after you register, which is very easy to do, then comes the hard part. As a money service business in the US, what it really does is allow the government to come in and examine you and audit you, basically. And
see, I didn't know that. That's why I went to jail.
Exactly. That's what that's the real lever that the government has on crypto businesses. I tell my friends, my coworkers, if you're in the crypto business, believe it or not, you're in the compliance business because you need to really carefully study those requirements. And the first requirement is if you meet the definition of a money service business because you facilitate activities that are related to convertible virtual currency, that's a defined term made by FinCEN, then you must register. Registration takes literally 5 minutes over the internet. But after that, you have a huge responsibility to abide by US laws, including the Bank Secrecy Act, all the anti-money laundering laws.
File suspicious activity reports.
Exactly.
You have to, have a certain AML program. You have to have a trained compliance officer, not me sitting in my parents' basement, which is what happened. It's
That's
compliance
right.
needs to be taken seriously, and I think up until 2014, we didn't.
That's right. The up to 2014, the industry was budding and getting stronger. And right at about that time, BitPay specifically, I think, got their Series A $20 million raise. And therefore, the timing, once again, was perfect for BitPay to look for a chief compliance officer. And that's how I got introduced to BitPay and joined BitPay in 2014, June 1st. And so, all my experience right prior to that, I was the anti-money laundering officer for Visa in Foster City. And so BitPay wanted to mimic the acquiring model, basically signing up merchants to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment, right? That's what Visa does on the acquiring side versus passing out billions of Visa cards on the issuing side. So that's the whole Visa model, except the acquiring side is what BitPay wanted to mimic and grow the ecosystem that way by enabling customers to use Bitcoin as a form of payment. So, it just all lined up perfectly. And I took that opportunity to join an excellent company and ride the crypto wave as it was becoming a little more mainstream. And one of the first opportunities was to be examined by FinCEN when they came knocking at BitPay. And so,
Wow. So up until this point, BitPay and FinCEN didn't really have communications. You came on board and said, hey, we need to get this out of the way. We need to talk to them if we're going to continue growing and being involved in this space.
yeah, I think BitPay registered even before I got there, but the examination schedule occurs one to every 2 years. So it was the first exam that BitPay had when I was there. And so myself and my great compliance teammates kind of lived through that first experience. And it was rough. We were educating the FinCEN delegates their exams to IRS field examiners. And so it was a little tough. They're used to, a money service business in their eyes is more like the conventional Western Unions, MoneyGrams, check cashing businesses that takes in cash and gives something else, or takes in checks and gives something else, or you're remitting money, cash to someone else. That's the typical.
All these legal terms. Terms.
Right.
Well, it was interesting that, remember when the whole ICO phase came out, everyone was using this term ICO, and I was trying to say, that's a legal term. Initial, IPO is a legal. By saying ICO, by using the word offering, you're essentially, it's as if you're saying I'm now a security. By implying those things. So if you do these things and you say these words, then you have to follow the regulations in this country. I want to ask you, what was it like working for the Federal Reserve during the 2008 Great Recession?
Wow, that's a great question. I was on an assignment. I think it was April 2008, 2008, when Bear Stearns went down. That evening, I was in New York, and I said, "Wow, this is history." For such a landmark institution like Bear Stearns to get sold for, I don't know, $1 a share to JPMC. It was amazing as a regulator, but also it's just crises will happen again. What I learned from that is that the regulators are prudent. They have their playbook. They're going to do risk assessments before and plan the exam. But I don't know. I think it's almost human nature or society nature that things are going to go off plank, and there's going to be, there's going to be greed. There's going to be aggressive risk taking, and it's going to happen again. And so at that time, I was like, "Oh, this is horrible. It's a tragedy, but it's part of history." And I'm able to live it, and I'm able to see it closely. So that was my reaction: a bit of shock, sadness, but also reality that I said, you know what, it's going to happen again.
But were you ever saying to yourself, this is a product of too loose of a regulatory market? Or were you saying to yourself, this is a product of too tight of a regulatory market? Because, they're very different socioeconomic beliefs on how many levers governments should have. And I don't have an opinion one way or another for the sake of the show. I'm more curious of your thoughts and feelings because, you have to understand you were there and you have stories, but also feelings that we'll never have.
Yeah. My opinion, my philosophy is that it actually does not matter if regulations are too loose or too tight, because for these anomaly or these rare crises,
like black swan events.
Yes, they kind of, it's dynamic. you can't just tie it to one action. You can't just say, oh, the regulation got too loose, or this regulation was launched and passed and got too tight. It's rarely that simple. What happens is that it feeds on many decisions that are made not only by the government. We blame the government or give government too much credit. It's also the businesses. And
Well, it's
so
an extreme.
we take risks. The whole CDO market, collateralized debt obligations, and all these subprime loans, they were very sophisticated products, right? Even it grew so sophisticated, even the people that put it together, the underwriters didn't know what they were selling. So it just feeds upon each other. And down to even Main Street. And that's why it was so tough for the Great Financial Recession. Main Street, Bob and Jane had, 3 homes that they were investing in Stockton or even in Hawaii. It got out of hand. It was almost like you were ridiculed if, you had a job working in San Francisco, but you only had one house that you lived in. It's like, what's wrong with you? Everyone is buying 3-4 houses in Riverside County, Stockton, Sacramento. It got out of hand. So it wasn't just one factor coming together, but many factors, and then which created the perfect storm, and it just kind of self-imploded.
That's very interesting that you say that, because I never heard that answer before, to be honest. And that's a very good response. That's almost saying, I feel like what you're trying to say is we can't go to extremes. When something like 2009 or 2008, whatever it was, happens, and it'll happen again, these black swan events, a lot of people will automatically jump to the extreme solution. They'll say, oh my God, our regulations are so loose, and look at all these people are getting away with all this, and now Bob and Alice on Main Street are getting screwed. And then you have people on the other side that say, oh no, our regulations are too tight. The bankers can get away with it. It's too tight. We don't understand it. And because we don't understand it, then it's too tight and no one could do business. And the payment company cabals like Visa and PayPal can do whatever they want. So you have these two extremes, and it's never a middle of the road thing.
That's right. That's part of life. That's why it makes great, conversations, debates. I love it. Like one of the first questions, I think politics is a global phenomenon. We all love to talk about it because it changes, every day. And so, but that's us. That's society, That
is society. How do you actually live your life on crypto? How do you do it? I've been doing it since I first got started with Bitcoin back in 2011. But since 2016, I've been using the BitPay debit card to spend my Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis. And it's been such a great product that I've been using it for over 3 years. BitPay is now sponsoring Untold Stories, and they're going to be giving away free Visa debit cards to all my listeners. All you have to do is visit bitpay.com/Charlie. It's such an easy card to use. You get the card in the mail, you download the BitPay app, you put Bitcoin on the app, and when you want to send Bitcoin from the app into your debit card, it only takes a few seconds, and you can spend your Bitcoin anywhere credit cards are offered. It's really so easy. You almost wonder, why didn't this come out in 2011 when Bitcoin first launched? Well, it was very difficult to do. In fact, I actually tried to launch my own debit card, but I wasn't able to because the credit card companies were very reluctant to do it. But now BitPay launched their product, and a lot of other companies have launched credit cards and debit cards using Bitcoin over the years. I still will only use the BitPay card. I'm very loyal to the brands I like, and I hope you guys are too. The fees are very low. You can use it to withdraw cash at ATMs. You can use it all around the world with very, very low fees. A lot of companies have tacked on super high fees, and I don't like that. So check it out. bitpay.com/Charlie. That's bitpay.com/Charlie. You get a free card. You don't have to pay for it. Usually the card costs $10 or more. There's a commitment, but you don't have to do that here. It's a free card. There's literally no reason to not try it out. I've been using it for over 3 years. So check it out. And thanks for listening to Untold Stories. And I want to talk about Bitpanda for a second. I mentioned at the beginning of the show that we're working with them, and we have been for a few months now. They love me and I love them. So I'm asking that you give them some love and some support, especially if you're listening from Europe. Bitpanda is the leading European platform for investing in digital assets. It doesn't hurt. Actually, it helps that they're based out of Austria, which is one of my favorite countries in the world. And Vienna is one of my favorite cities in the world to visit. I try to go as frequently as I can. And, meeting up with the Bitpanda team is always a pleasure. I really like Bitpanda's approach. Why? Well, basically, what they're doing is to apply the same tech that we're used to from Bitcoin and apply it to other digitized assets. And I'll explain why. And if you check out their website, you'll understand how that actually works. Because they're really pushing hard for bringing crypto to the masses and educate people on the topic. Unlike other companies that just want to really give love to their customers, Bitpanda is giving love and spending money on mass adoption, just bringing more people into Bitcoin. With their recently launched educational platform, it's not only free, it's called Bitpanda Academy. It's not only free, but you'll actually learn and you'll earn €5 just for taking quizzes on their site. So it's a great way to force you to learn more about Bitcoin. Check them out. Again, they give me love, so I'm asking for you, my listeners, to give them some love. So let's talk about OKCoin. In 2016, OKCoin was the largest Bitcoin exchange in the world with a volume of over 16 million Bitcoin per month. Huge number. OKCoin has, is a parent company. There are a few sub companies now, and it's safe to say that I don't know, but I'm assuming you have hundreds of employees around the world. It's safe to say that you're a very, very large company and that you're the CEO of, and you're based in San Francisco. Tell me about, kind of moving into that role, coming from BitPay, moving into the role, and now you have to navigate the waters, not just of your company, but you're almost representing the industry in offices of governments. What is that like? And do you feel that you have a little bit of an edge because you speak their same language?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I feel so fortunate to have these experiences. So maybe I could take it all the way back to
Let's do it. We got plenty of time.
All right, November 2014. I was at BitPay in our San Francisco office, and we get an email saying OKCoin wants to visit our office. And it's like we were saying, what for? What's the purpose? What's the agenda? We don't do anything with OKCoin. But, we said, let's do just a courtesy invite, have coffee. And so they came to our office. Lo and behold, it's Star Shu, the founder of OKCoin, Jack Liu, who was the chief strategy officer back then for OKCoin.
I remember Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rember Jack, actually. He just WhatsApped me.
Yes. And so we sat with OKCoin. They were developing a super wallet that could hold various tokens. And at BitPay, we at the end of the day, there was no deal or strategic partnership. But OKCoin also, as just a courtesy, wanted to meet all the startups in San Francisco. Because at that time, OKCoin was banning U.S. Residents, U.S. customers. So while OKCoin was huge in China, Asia, Hong Kong, it was they were banning U.S. customers, but they wanted to meet the ecosystem. Because what's great about the Bitcoin ecosystem is we all kind of launched at around the same period, right? It wasn't like
How funny is that?
Yeah, it's a global phenomenon. It wasn't that one country had a right or a 30-year lead in making automobiles and all the countries did not. No, 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 no. This was a global phenomenon. And so it had a great camaraderie. Everyone was open to learning. So it was a great
Are you
time.
using past tense on purpose? Are you using like was? I'm just curious. No, I'm not sure if you do that on purpose or by mistake. That's why I'm asking. Because
maybe.
We could talk about that.
I think we should because although the ecosystem is still very friendly and tight, I think we have kind of lost that camaraderie because everyone has gotten bigger and everyone is really more, insular and focused on their priorities. But yeah, we have lost some of that. But anyway, I met Starshu in November 2014. And then I remember him asking me a compliance related question. Why in the US do you have to get so many licenses? What's that all about?
What did you say?
Well, I explained to him that we both have in the US, we have both a federal requirement, MSB, that I just talked about, as well as state requirements, MTLs, money transmittal licenses. And so that's why your job is not done after fulfilling federal requirements. You still need to abide and fulfill state requirements. So, I didn't think it was a excellent answer or a terrific answer. But anyway, he remembered that.
Oh, it's not a satisfying answer.
True, but it's the reality, right?
Yes.
So fast forward 2016, 2 years already at BitPay. It took me only 2 years or that long to figure out, spending Bitcoins at your favorite merchants is a great initiative, but it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long time. People actually are now valuing their Bitcoins a little more. You talked about the rough period of 2014 to 2016, but even with that, I think people were now realizing and having some remorse that their Bitcoins can appreciate a lot, and therefore they want to hold. They don't want to spend it. They would rather spend their US dollars on a gift card.
When did you realize this? And what were some of the socioeconomic effects of that? Because that's a big pivot, right? You go from BitPay, who's leading one of the companies that's leading the charge on consumer adoption, the longest and oldest running, crypto company. Then you go into OKCoin, which focuses on a different type of customer.
Yes. Well, back then it was kind of the same customer because back then not many people had Bitcoin and they were supporting the ecosystem, wanting to support BitPay, using their BitPay Bitcoins to buy, gift GYFT cards. But they also wanted to hold for the long term or speculate in the short term. And where do they do that? They go through an exchange and they buy and sell and they hopefully make a profit, or they keep on accumulating for the long term as a long-term investor. And so the exchange business was actually a great business back then as well. Even today, I think many people use Bitcoin as almost a alternative asset class, and they invest in it, they sell it, they trade it, they arbitrage it, they have some views of it, and they try and make they're a mini hedge fund themselves. So that's what we're purely at today. I think it's a big focus or big activity of the entire ecosystem. Obviously, I'm looking forward to what's going to come next. And I think we have too many great minds, entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, and we are going to see good things. But it's not crystal clear yet. I think we're going to have to wait a little longer for huge innovations to come. I like to use the analogy. I think we're in the early 90s of the internet age, and folks like BitPay, OKCoin, Coinbase, Kraken, we think that we're the superstars right now, but you don't know. We could be the Netscape prodigies, CompuServes of the internet age, or AOL. Maybe some people would relate.
Well, if you were the AOL, Netscape, and CompuServes of Bitcoin, first of all, that wouldn't be a bad thing. I mean, you look at like Jeremy Allaire, Mike Novogratz. I mean, these are people who were involved in the early. You look at and Andreessen. These are people that were involved in the early days of the internet, like you as well. But how do you keep OKCoin at the top? How do you keep it a superpower? How do you make sure that you're not, for the sake of your shareholders and your customers and your investors, how do you make sure you're continuing to evolve? Because like I was saying earlier, you can't just, like what you said, you have to figure out what the industry wants. It's not like you can go look up and say, where is the demand? What do people want? You have to figure it out and then build it. So every time you build a new product, you're taking such an immense risk that people just don't want it or won't like it.
That's right. So I think it obviously starts with visionary leadership. And so, OKCoin has Starshoe at the top. He's going to work his hardest to make sure we're not the AOL of the world or the Netscape of the world. He's going to keep a fine tune and eye towards what's coming up next, diversify a little. If it's decentralized exchanges, we're going to be in decentralized exchanges. If it's going to be another product, he's going to make sure that we're also at least, we have a investment side of the business. He's going to make a small investment and hopefully learn from great minds that grow their business. And perhaps we could do something in the future as a partnership. So that's what I think great leaders do. And we have a lot of them in San Francisco as well.
They collaborate.
Right. And so, Coinbase's model of selling tokens via Coinbase.com versus Coinbase Pro, which is a trading platform like OKCoin, letting you bring in US dollars to trade. I think Coinbase is also going to look at what is on the forefront and make sure that they stay in the game and morph and change and, hopefully become the Google of the world, right? And stay relevant and grow with the industry.
I feel like during 2018, to go further what you said, maybe, I don't know the exact year, but maybe 2016 to 2018, I feel like those were the years where a lot of these larger companies took their separate products and created separate brands. And you gave the perfect example. Coinbase went to GDAX, and then they decided, hey, we need to keep using the brand that we have. They called it Coinbase Pro. You have a lot of companies that did that for a lot of reasons. Sometimes it was regulatory reasons. You look at Binance. Binance is doing that now, and it seems like the two different models is A, separate the companies that have that do different things within the same brand, and then two, if they're operating in different in countries and different jurisdictions, Bittrex is doing it, Binance is doing, a lot of the exchanges are doing it. You guys have done it. What is the relationship now between all these, not just with you, but maybe you have some insight with other companies? How do they work in decentralized companies all over the world, already decentralized? Do they operate better? And how is the relationship between OKCoin and OKX? What is the relationship? Because I don't even know if I know. And how do these companies maintain, these decentralized divisions that operate interchangeably with each other? Sometimes they have to because the jurisdictions require it, right? How do they do that?
So first of all, it's nothing new. Bank of America.
But it's new for the space.
Correct.
It's new for the space.
And I'll use a traditional example like Bank of America. They probably have 10,000 subsidiaries and entities throughout the world. But we just think, it's Bank of America, and I can use my ATM here in San Francisco or in Chicago, and it works seamlessly. So with the crypto world, as we expand territory-wise, which OKCoin has done, right? We have launched our European office November 1st, 2018. We call it OKCoin Europe Ltd, and it is seeking a license locally from the Malta regulators under their VFA, virtual financial asset law. So, that's the exciting part of my job, where I get to meet local regulators and central banks and see what their framework is all about. But what's happening inside our house is we're always evaluating whether we want to expand and how we want to expand. Is it safer, better, more efficient to use one entity to expand into another country, or to set up a brand new office and localize it so that we can most likely adhere to local laws, which are just being rolled out? So while you read it on paper, you hear it from their mouths, you don't know how it's going to be interpreted. So there's always risk there. And so that's why we have finally come to the US. We turned on our platform July 13th, 2018, and started to target US customers. So that's been a learning process, right? Because before then we would ban US customers. Now we welcome US customers. So it's a tough, huge pivot, but that's what we want to do, and grow our US business through our OKCoin USA Inc. entity in San Francisco that I'm helping to lead the charge. But we've got other entities that we're also going to kind of mimic this model. I feel like OKCoin is we're like maybe the Samsung of the world. Maybe we were successful in our home country, but now we need to export our services and still sell great TVs or mobile phones in the US and other parts of the world. So that's where OKCoin is coming from. Coinbase, Kraken, they're doing the same thing, but probably they've been successful in the US. Now they're going to expand. They're going to set up shop in UK. They're going to set up shop in Germany. And they are also expanding overseas. So it's a amazing phenomenon, but that's the entire ecosystem expanding. To answer your question about OKEX and OKCoin, we are sister companies. We share kind of.
What does that term mean? I hear that now, and I don't know the definition of that word.
So we have investors, venture funds that have invested in the OKCoin group, and those funds own shares of OKEX entity and OKCoin entity. So we are part of the same group, OK Group, but we are distinct entities with distinct obligations under each territories that we operate. And that's how we have separated it. It's almost like Wells Fargo has Wells Fargo National Bank, NA, but it also has Wells Fargo Securities Investments. And so those are separate entities, but probably all in the same Wells Fargo group. And so,
hey, you just brought up an interesting thought that I just had. Do you think that we'd ever, and you're the perfect person to ask, do you think we'd ever see in crypto a similar, if we continue, when we continue to grow, do you think we'd see a similar situation where governments come out and say, similar to how they came out and said banks can no longer be both retail banks and investment banks? It has to be split. Do you think that could ever happen in our space?
Of course it could happen. And it's because we live in a society that we pick representatives to make laws. So it all depends if we have representatives that draft bills that we like or don't like, but if it gets passed, that's how it happens. It's to me, it's as simple as that. So you know, when Facebook had its testimony about Libra, there was a congressman that drafted a bill that said, you know what, tech companies should not be in the financial institution space. It's like, to me, that was unfounded or lacking a basis. But you know what? That's our representatives, and they will draft bills like that. Fortunately, it did not come to pass, but you never know. In fact, unfortunately, the opposite happens. In California, believe it or not, you don't need California's MTL, money transmittal license. And it's because the Californian regulators do not see Bitcoin as money. And the MTL license only covers money. And therefore, there is no license for Coinbase and OKCoin in California or anyone else to get the California MTL license, even though we need, many other states' MTL licenses. So
every state
is different. And so there's a congressman in Encino, California, that wants to support the crypto market, Congressman Dabonnet. I'm not sure if he's still active in Encino, but he wanted to pass a state bill and have the legislature pass it so that it could come under the fold of the state regulators, but it never passed. And therefore, it's no change today. We still do not have a license in California to obtain because it's out of scope. So we still operate in California, but technically it's unlicensed, believe it or not.
It's very interesting how that works. I always assumed that you need all 50 licenses, and wouldn't you just get all 50 if you were getting the other 40 something to be safe? Because having those licenses is an asset in and of itself. But it's interesting that you say that I know that like Wyoming and some other states, Nevada, have said like, hey, you want to do crypto, you don't have to come here. Some states like Florida are a lot more open, but then you have other states like New York that are just completely different.
Absolutely.
I was happy to see that. Very recently, I think as recently as a few months ago, the superintendent of the New York Department of Financial Services came out and she said that she's now going to be taking another look at the Bit license that Ben Lusky put together. So that was kind of cool, right? Do you think that would be better or worse if they, relook at the Bit license? Because while a lot of people complain about the Bit license, would you agree that a Bit license is better than no license because it's better to have clarity than non-clarity?
That's a very tough question. Especially since I've lived through licensing and regulations for so long. I think the world of FinCEN, who came out with a specific convertible virtual currency guidance in March of 2013. And that's still considered kind of the principle or the Bible today, if you want to read about what is covered under U.S. federal laws for Bitcoin. And so
that guidance has such a important place in my life history that I'll never forget when that guidance came out. That was the first federal guidance that came out, published on a U.S. government website that ever mentioned Bitcoin, that one in 2013. Yeah. I'll never forget.
It's even more amazing.
What did the guidance say?
It basically said that if you are in the business or activity of facilitating convertible virtual currency, and see that last word they attached, it's a defined term, convertible virtual currency. Currency. They see it as a currency, right? That last word. Oh. So that's how they brought it into the broader definition of a money service business. If they defined it, Bitcoin is a convertible virtual good, right? CVG instead of CVC, I don't
But
think it
Tim,
would have gone into the money service business realm.
but Tim, and I don't mean to get too technical here, but I mean, you own a currency. Like if I have $1 in my pocket, that dollar is in my pocket. If it's in my bank account, well, maybe own isn't a good word, but if it's in my bank account, it's in my bank account. The point, Bitcoin and crypto there's no such thing as ownership, right? It's just unspent inputs and outputs going into spent inputs and outputs. One can make the case that you just hold the keys to spend these outputs, but you don't actually own a Bitcoin. A Bitcoin doesn't actually exist. Could we ever go and challenge that FinCEN guidance of calling it a currency? Because if we didn't, some people like that it is a currency, but others don't. You think that could ever be challenged?
I think it will be challenged, and there'll always be debates going back to the core of that. So,
and that's healthy.
It is healthy, and we're lucky that we can do it in a professional, open, transparent manner in the U.S. But FinCEN, although it came out with that great guidance, which was a trailblazing guidance in 2013, you got to imagine they spent at least a year studying it and investigating it and really taking time to write that. I don't remember how many pages. It's only like 4 to 6 pages, but it's loaded. And it was huge, and it is still huge today. It's still entirely relevant today. So I would recommend everyone to read it. I like to read it at least once a year because it's so profound, but it changed the US landscape for Bitcoins and crypto. And so they defined it as a currency. I will disagree with you, Charlie, because I don't see it as a currency today. I wish it will be a currency tomorrow or in my lifetime. I wish I can easily use it anywhere in the world, but I just don't see it as currency today. I see it as a good. I see it as an alternative asset class.
You're not disagreeing with me. If anything, we're in agreement. I think we don't know what Bitcoin's going to be or what crypto is going to be. I think we don't know what this is going to be, and I think it's unfair, and I think it's almost selfish to say that this is what this is. And so to in 2013 to throw it under a category and define it, I understand the need for definitions. Tim, you're preaching to the choir. I understand the need for clarity. You want to sell products to the consumers of America, you got to pay to play. You got to operate legally. Yeah. You got to do the right thing. And I'll be the first person to tell my listeners, I'll be the first person, being someone who went through the criminal justice system, that you want to follow the laws and stay out of the gray area. Don't even go in the gray area because you don't want to be as stupid as I was when I was a kid and make mistakes. But I guess I want to end off and ask you a tough question. And I know you've been saying that everything is a tough question. And not tough because it's like a gotcha, but it's more tough because I don't know the answer to this, and I guess that's okay. You made a statement that I've been saving till the end. You made a statement in the beginning of the episode. You said money is owned by government, right? And that's an interesting quote, right? Now, if you were just a regulator that I was talking to, I would say, okay, like that's your opinion. But you've been working in crypto now for a few years, not a few years, for many years, since 2014. So 5 years, 6 years. So the question I have for you is, now having had spent significant time in both camps. And this is one of those questions where, please, if you can, answer for America and also answer for the rest of the world. A lot of governments, and when I mean, and I'm talking about, you talk about Africa, you talk about, dictatorships, I'm talking about places where we don't have a multicultural society, multi-democratic society, places where we don't have those. Do you think that it's a divine right for governments to mandate and control money? Or shouldn't it be up to the voters to say, not only am I electing you, but I'm also not happy or happy with how you're doing money, and maybe I think that Bitcoin could do a better job at that? Do you think that could ever be a scenario that could play out?
it will play out, but I have a little tweak on this. I actually am in the camp that government should still control, own, have the divine authority, like you said, of money, of their money, though. So it's the U.S.
Yes,
money.
of their money. That's a
Of
very
their money.
important
I
statement.
fully agree. And
Yes.
I'm a citizen of the U.S. I have dollars, and I enjoy the benefits of what a stable dollar can and does do in our society. But we need to let them have the divine authority to control that US dollar. I think what's going to happen is that eventually Bitcoin will become an alternative money, and hopefully it'll be ubiquitous in a country likely outside of America first. And so maybe we can keep our eyes open and we'll see a country maybe adopt it, and it'll be not a novel fad that country ABC has now adopted it. No, no, no. It has to be used, and it has to be a viable alternative. And so I don't know how that's going to happen. It's going to require innovative politicians, businessmen, society, but I think it will happen. And then I think that's going to set a bigger snowballing effect, and you'll get the medium sized countries to be able to use it. And to be honest, because governments will control their money, I think it's going to be society that actually enables and promotes the use of Bitcoin. So it's kind of like, why does cacao talk? Why did it get so popular? It wasn't because of governments backing it. It was because of people. It was because of businesses. It was because of innovators that created it. And it became so popular. So I feel like that's where we are. The ecosystem has entrepreneurs. It's going to come and build a better, deeper ecosystem. And that's how crypto is going to take off. That's how Bitcoin is going to take off and become Main Street. And it's going to, first of all, ride parallel to the yen, euro, dollar, and become an alternative to that. I'm not in the camp of Bitcoin is going to take over and the yen is going to be worthless camp. To me,
Amen. I agree with you. And I think that that over the years, the past years and over the next years, more people will agree with you. And I think that a majority of people agree with you. And it's funny that I'm talking to someone who worked at the Federal Reserve, but I think that if I had to put it into a sentence, I think that the common understanding now but it used to not be. It used to be different. It used to be end the Fed. You've probably heard this before, right? It used to be end the Fed, end the Federal Reserve. But now I think it's like transcend. I think it's, hey, let's build a better system. We voluntarily will let people use our system. And the super good benefit is it'll force the other systems, the Federal Reserve and our current financial system, to become better as well, because now they have to compete. And I think we're seeing that, Tim. I think we saw that with the ACH system very recently, coming out and saying, okay, now we see people want instant payments. Eventually, in like 3 years, we're going to have instant transfers from bank account to bank account in the U.S.
That's right. No, it's going to be an alternative. The yen, euro, dollar, I think are going to still be around. Mass populations will use it, but also we'll see mass usage of Bitcoin, and it'll be an alternative. And I think because we are in the kind of mobile internet world, and it's becoming more electronified, digitized, I think it's a perfect landscape for Bitcoin and the crypto ecosystem.
Tim, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. How can our listeners follow what you are up to? How can they follow what the company is up to and continue the conversation?
Please simply follow OKCoin.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and I'll hopefully meet you in person throughout the ecosystem conferences and get-togethers, meetups.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to meeting you soon.
All right. Thank you, Charlie.
Hey, everyone. Hey, everyone. This is Charlie Shrem, and you're listening to Untold Stories. As an investor, Pascal Gauthier, the CEO of Ledger, one of the most well-known hardware wallets and companies in our industry, one of the first companies to make crypto hardware wallets, he says one thing when companies and different projects come in front of him. He asks, who's your competition? If you don't have any competition, that could mean that you're either onto something huge, like something else that no one has thought of yet, or it could also mean that you're banging your head against the wall, maybe literally. Pascal and I spent the day talking about Ledger, and we talked about what he looks at on different companies and projects that are transforming the industry and igniting a revolution. As CEO and one of the first investors of Ledger, he is in the perfect position to take the company forward. We talked about the origins of Ledger and how they revolutionized Bitcoin wallets, making a transformational leap from USB sticks, which were something that everyone used back then, to the hardware wallet as we know it today. We discussed in depth the French technology of Ledger and why he thinks France has some of the best developers in the world. Pascal shows optimism for the future of crypto and Bitcoin and emphasizes that they're in it for the long run. The early players of crypto, Pascal and myself included, we believe that there's a long road ahead, and we discussed the idea of making the world a better place to live in with Bitcoin, with crypto, with Ledger, and with all of us working together. I can't wait to share this episode with you guys, and I'll talk to you right after the ads. Thanks for listening. New episodes of Untold Stories are released every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 a.m. EST on untoldstories.com, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Untold Stories is produced by Jason Yanowitz, Michael Ippolito, Reed Hannaford, and Riley Silbert of Blockworks Group. Our account executives are Gina DeFelice and Julie Muroff. Our content is written by Kathy Zolo, Ronnie Tishner, and Scott Offord. Special thanks to Wayne Dallaire from Jump Dog Audio Productions. And of course, I'm your host, Charlie Shrem. You can follow me on Twitter at Charlie Shrem to continue the conversation. Send me some messages, feedback, or anything you want to say. And remember, please give some love to my sponsors, and I'll see you next week. Remember, strength in numbers and information is power.